This week we are going to make a valve assembly. We use valves to control the fluids. In our example, we use metal-to-metal contact in order to prevent the fluid flow. And we use this metal-to-metal contact between the body part and the number 6 of the collar. A valve is used in a fluid line to control the fluid flow. In the fluid open position, the valves get lifted by 5 mm from the seat to allow the fluid from the left to right in our example. Figure shows the detail of the screw-down valve. We have a part list on the right side. During our modeling, we are not going to make the parts which are highlighted with the blue box. The sleeve number 5 is mounted on the stem 8 by the screw 9. Valve seat 11 is attached to the collar with number 6. With the screw 12 and the collar 6 is screwed on the sleeve number 5. We are going to just complete the valve assembly. Screw sleeve number 10 is located in the bonnet number. This assembly group is screwed on the valve body number 1. Gland number 4 is located in the bonnet group with the stem number 8 and with packing number 7 seen in this figure. But we do not model this packing group. This packing group prevents the leakage of the fluid from the valve. Gland is secured by the cap nut number 3. Hand wheel 13 is mounted on the stem using the nut 14. During the operation of the hand wheel, the screw number 9 lifts the valve, opens the fluid passage, or screws down the valve to stop the flow from one side to another. The stem number 8 is called actuating screw. We will start our work with part modeling first. After part modeling, we will continue to assembly modeling. And finally, we will create the technical drawing of the part assemblies and the parts. We also create exploded view and create an animation movie about the valve working. After the assembly modeling, we will check our part interference. I will also show you how to give geometrical clearances in the drawing files. In an assembly, most of the parts are made up of cast iron or brass parts. We use rubber sealings for leakage prevention. We will also assign materials and color for our parts. Let's start with the part modeling. In our part modeling, we will just create 10 parts for this valve assembly. The most complex part in this assembly is the valve body. As you see, I have just separated our parts draft view into pieces. You can also see this view, this page in your submission. Let's start with the valve body here. As you see, we have 3 views at this point. Let's call this view, I will just show you this view as a front. I will assume this view as a front view. And this is the left view, which I have seen here. Also the top view, which I have seen at this point. I'll just take these doodling backside. As you see, we have the hexagonal part extrusions at these ends. I will just start first with these extrusions at these ends. After this one, I will just create a body part by using some measures or some path tools with the loft tool. Also, I will just remove material by having the revolve tool and add the inside feature here, which I'm going to use this body part by having the extrusion with two commands. And I will just remove this section. I will just do it much more in content. Here, I will just remove this portion with the revolve tool. I will just take my moves back. Let's start the part modeling first. I will just open a new inventor file with standard millimetric part here. In the part modeling, we have to just choose a point for our origin. We have to just select a point in our part as an origin point. For this reason, I will just show you after this one. I will show you the center point. Make this one visible and this one visible to just show you about the things. Here in our part, we have an origin point, and for this one, I will just select this point as my origin point, and I will just construct the body parts here, the body features at around this point. As you see, we have a distance between the hexagonal pockets, and these hexagonal pockets, I will just create a circle around this one, and I will have 80 millimeter, which is 40 millimeter from this side and 40 millimeter to the other side. I will just create two hexagonal with the right angle, which I have seen at this point, and I will just make those extrusions on two sides with 13 millimeters. I will just take and make this part drawing clearer. I will just start with the part model. For this, I will just start a new sketch on XY plane and just mark these with a center line. I will use that sketch later on. I have just created two lines with escape and convert them for construction purposes. I will just use these lines for dimensioning purposes. I will just get the midpoint, coincident constraint, midpoint to origin point, and move that one. Also, I will do the same thing for the other part, like this. First, I will just create two planes or two sketch, which are, of course, I can just make these two lines for construction purposes of the planes, which I am going to create the hexagonal extrusions. For these, I need some planes to sketch on, and I will just create those sketches, whether at this point or whether at this point, which is one from the origin point. If I have just chosen the furthest point here, I have to just give 40 millimeter distance from the origin point on two sides. I will just jump to this one and I will create a 40 millimeter distance from these 2 points, which is this line, about the 40 millimeter in distance. I will also not going to use in the extrusion purposes. I will just convert this line for construction. I will have the other line, or if you can, by the mirror tool, or I will just make a new line on the other side and convert this tool with the construction purposes. Also, I will define this dimension with 40 millimeters. After these tools, I'm going to just create two sketches at these points. For this, I will use the points of these intersection lines. For that reason, I will just create those points in order to create the planes at these points, which is these 2 points. I will use those points. Finish my sketch first. Have the isometric view. From the plane tool, I will just select and create 2 planes at these 2 points, which is perpendicular to this line. I have the plane tool, a parallel plane through point tool. I will just select this one. But before this one, I will just choose a parallel plane which just passes through the origin point. I have just opened the YZ plane. Create a new plane with parallel point, through point here. I will just select this point and this plane to create a sketch at that point. Start a new sketch. As far as I remember, we have some dimension tools, which are, we have 35 millimeter inside this length. We have a hexagonal shape with 35 millimeter. I will just clean these to see better. Again, I will just jump to my side. First, I just create a new sketch, a new circle, having the diameter 35 millimeters. I'm not going to use this one. It is only for construction purposes. I will just change this one as a construction line or circle. The next thing, I will just create a polygon, which is the hexagonal I need this time. I will just create a polygon having this point center with right angle like this, and the corners of these hexagons or the sides is the tangent of these lines, and make the one line not perpendicular, this line perpendicular or with the horizontal constraint, which is on YZ plane. Finish my sketch. If you want, you can just make an extrusion tool till to the end side, or if you want, you can just make one extrusion of this hexagon packet with 13 millimeters. This is the first thing that we should have to do. The next thing, I would like to just create another hexagon extrusion on the other side. I have just done this one. Let's change the color this time. I have just done this extrusion. I will just create the other side here, this one. For these purposes, I'm going to use the mirror tool by using the YZ plane on the other side. Let's have the mirror tool. This time we just mirror the feature, not the sketch. I will just mirror this one. And after this selection, I will just select. The software asks me 2 things. To which features I'm going to just copy on the other side, and which tools I would like to use, or which planes I'm going to use for the other mirror on the other side. For this reason, I will just first select this feature, then the mirror tool on the other side. This is the first one. This is the first sketch that we need. So after these, I will just look and I'm going to just create the body loft part here. I will just take the doodling here. And for this reason, I'm just going to make these sketches because the loft the loft command needs at least 3 sketches. The first thing we need to just define the first sketch and the other plane sketch, and we have to just define the pathways. For our sketch, we need at least 3 sketches, and for these sketches, we have to draw some features or some lines on our sketch base. I will just go and have that sketch. The first thing I need I'm sorry. The first thing I need this way. Let's create this way. I will just make this way on XY plane. Also for the other side, I will just do a normal straight line for that pathway. This is sketch 1. Let's say this is sketch 2. Also, from the top side, I have seen other pathways. Let's draw these pathways with different colors, like this. This is my third path, and this will be my fourth path. Okay, and as you see, we have in our left side view, let's draw this point with a normal line. We have a profile at the most point, which is probably at this point. We have a curvature profile like the arc shape, like this. I need also that profile at the midpoint at this in our figure. For this reason, I'm just going to create the fifth one. And from this point, I will just start a new sketch with a round section. I will just create a cylindrical arc or cylindrical shape which passes through this one. And I will just create the other side. Or we can just make this profile also with the cylindrical face. And after this, we will just make the cut on the top side, whichever you would like to prefer. It is the same. I think it will be the same. It will give the same result. Or for the other side, this is our profiles. We have 6 profile, 5, the next one, also the 7. These are our profiles. And the other side, this is our pathways, which is on the top side. This is our pathway, the number 2 on the bottom side, which is 3. 3 is also our path, which is at the most point, which is at these profiles. Also, the number 4 is the same profile, which is passing from the origin point. I will just create these figures one by one. Let's keep these in mind. We have a 45 millimeter in radius with 3 millimeter in thickness at this 2 point. Let's create the 1 and 2 pathways first. I will just go and create the new sketches at this point. The pathway, the first sketch, it will just start at this point and it will end at this point. I will just finish my sketch. Please just keep this sketch, this profile, and do not select other profiles. If you have select these project geometries, please make these profiles or project geometries with construction into construction phases. Again, I will select this one and make this line construction because I need only on this line. Finish my sketch. This is the pathway, the number 1. Again, the same thing. Discard the sketch again on XY plane. I will just create the first thing, which is this. Right click, the radius, it is for 45 with the radius at this point. Also, I need an offset at this point with 3 millimeters. I think we have a problem. Probably this figure has 35. Let's correct it like this in our part. With F7 tool, I will just cut this profile and I need this pathway, as you see. You can use the inside profile, you can use the outside profile. I'm going to use the inside profile because it will just touch at these points here. We have a fault in the technical drawing side because the shape doesn't seem that it is the 45. Let's say, I think it is belong to this place. I'm sorry. I will just correct my figure here. Again, I will just go and erase the 2 lines. And I will just create 2 lines again by using this line midpoint. Get this geometry, make this sketch invisible, and create 1 circle here. I'm going to use only this arc shape by having the dimension 45 like this. And our shape will just start after this one. I will just get the offset, and this offset, the dimension here, it is 3 millimeters. As you see, we have that offset at this point. And I will just make the cut because I need only a pathway. Make this line construction. Also, I'm not going to use this line construction. I will just use the outer line here, which is this one. For this reason, I will just choose some geometries to make the trim operation or split operation here. I'm not going to make the trim. I will just split and keep only these 2 parts here. Make split. And convert this circle arc shape to construction. Also, I will just make the construction for other lines. I would like to only keep this line and the line on the top side for pathways. I will just finish my sketches. Yes. Let's continue. Again, I have opened this visibilities. The next thing I'm going to do is I will just make a new lines, pathways, the number 3 and the number 4. They are all symmetrical around this line. For this reason, I'm going to make, if you want, you can just make the 2 lines. If you want, you can just make the other lines. Here we have a 55 millimeter in radius, and it is starting, as you see, this is starting at this point, at these 2 line ends, which is this line end in the hexagon extrusions. I will just make some doodling bags like this. Okay. I will just go and have these lines. But for this, I'm going to use another plane, which is on YZ plane. Make this visible. I will just simplify and just close the other planes. I will just only keep this plane and XY plane. I will just use these planes to work on it. The next thing, I'm going to start a new sketch on XZ plane. And this time, with F7 tool, I can just remove everything between my point of view and the sketch that I'm working on. The next thing I'm going to create an arc shape which has a dimension with radius 55. I'm sorry, the diameter, let's erase this one, the diameter 55. And this time, these lines will just continue and start at this point. I'm just going to make this shape. I will just try to make this shape. I will just continue this shape and starting from these two lines and we'll continue with an arc shape. These lines are just creating the new lines here. Only I have the 55 at this point. Here, what I'm going to do is I will just go and make these two lines tangent to this circle. And also, I can do the same thing by mirroring on the other side, but I would like to just keep another line and make this line by using the tangent constraint here. I will just make these two lines tangent to each other. And I will just trim the unnecessary parts, which I'm not going to use. Escape. I will only keep the pathway. For this reason, I will just make the construction which I have get during this pathway creation. I will just make the project geometries and turn them into construction lines. This is the pathway on the top side. Also, we need another pathway. I will just create this sketch, mirror, and I will just get, I'm sorry, I'm not going to select this one. First, the sketch. If I can just make the selection. Okay. Anyway, you can also create the same thing on the other side. For this reason, I will just create another sketch. I would like to keep the other sketches. Again, do the same thing for other side. This time, I will just make the geometry equal, this one, equal to each other. First of all, I will just get this geometry and make this line, this circle, equal to this circle. And I will just make, again, with F7 tool, starting line at this point, start another line at this point, make the lines tangent to these circles, starting point I have just make the confusion here. I will just heal it with the coincident constraint. I will just go to this point. I would like to keep at this point. Here I'm going to just close the sketch visibility, make the trim for unnecessary parts to keep the pathway at this point. Also, I do not need this line and this arc shape. Let's work on other visibilities. Now I have 4 pathways. I will just again make this one visible, the other one visible. Now, what I'm going to do is I will just create the profiles that I need for the loft process. For this reason, I start 2 sketches, which is one on this face, which is also one on this face, having the dimension which is 35 millimeter with 2 circles. I'm just going to create 2 circles on this surface and on this surface. Let's start. I will just use this one. With F7 tool, I will just see the face and use this origin point and create a new line. If you want, you can make this circle tangent to this surface. It is the same thing. And I will just keep this line construction. This is the first surface and it will just go around this line with finished sketch. So I realized a mistake and this time I'm going to make and change my first sketch and I will just get this point after these creations. As you see, all these lines passing through these circles. Also, I made the same mistake at this point, and I will just make this combine. The first pathway, the second one. Again, let's do the same thing for the other side. Again, same not extrusion. Start a new sketch. This time I'm not going to draw a new line, a new circle. I will just get the geometry on the other side. If you want, you can also get this one. I will just get this geometry and I will just make the projection on the other side. Finish my sketch. Again, I will just heal this line and make this line by having the tool at this point. For this reason, I'm going to make these 2 sketches because this is the timeline and these are the children that cannot see the other parts. For this reason, I will just make the moves to the top side of these 2 sketches to get their properties and transfer the other lines. For this first sketch, I will just get this geometry. I will just delete this line. Also delete the other line. And I will just move this line first with the geometry I have taken from this circle point. For this one, I'm going to make construction. If you want, you can just delete and create a new line with F7 tool up to this point. Create a new line up to this surface with horizontal and make this line trimmed up to this point. For this, I need a geometry and I will just make the trim at this point. I would like to show you better. I'm not going to make the two lines. I will just create a new line between this surface here, this surface, and the other surface by using this circle diameter here. Finish my sketch and accept. Also, I have another point here. I'm not going to use this one. For this reason, I will just make this line, delete it, and I will just engage my circle here. The sketch, I will just open this one or this one. You can just use the both of them. I will just correct the sketch 4 and make this point on this line. For this, I need a geometry. I will get that geometry in my sketch. As you see, it is a new line created on this one, and I will just make this point on this point. Also, I need to fix my circle here around this line. For this reason, I'm just going to create a new origin line and make this center line on this point. Okay. I will just correct these sketches after this one. Now, all the points here, the straight line, path, the path on the bottom side, the line number 2, the third and the fourth pathways, all path just touching the circles, these profiles and this profile here. Also, we have another profile at this point, and it is this profile, which I have just previously shown you about this one. As you see, we have a 25 millimeter profile with this radius, which is on the origin side. You can just make this one, or you can just make this arc shaped with this tool. I'm just going to make the other profile. We need 3 profiles in our example. For this reason, I will just make the other sketches. I will just only keep the profiles, and I will just make them invisible for our other parts. I would like to just create a new profile which is at the origin point by starting a new sketch, and at this point with F7 tool I will just start a new arc shape like this with radius 25 and with a line, and this line I would like to keep this line at this point. For this reason, I just project a geometry, as you see, and I would like to have that line at least tangent to this curvature here. I will give the tangent curvature. And from this point, I will just make the trims on each side, like this. We have 3 profiles, and I would like to just make this profile, let's make this profile inside a clear. We will use the pathways around these points. Let's start a new loft profile. And in loft profile, let me just carry these tools, and I will just create a new profile without using the pathways to show you what we are doing here. As you see, we have the body part at this point. It is reasonably clear here. You can use these ways. But on the top side, we cannot control the pathway of these lines because when I have opened this one, let's create the body part like this. The top is, as you see, it is curved. No problem. We will just engage these lines afterwards. When I have just opened the pathway 3 and 4, as you see, we have not defined these lines and these parts are missing in our loft profile. For this reason, when doing these profiles, I will just include the rails like this and also another rail on this side. Let's create at this point. Let me check if we have the profile passing through. Yes, this profile doesn't intersect at this point. For this reason, I'm just going to make the correction here. As you see, we have a profile which is 25 and this time we have a profile passing through. Let me correct this first. For this reason, I will just make this profile corrected with not 25, it must be 55, which is, that's this one, correct, 55 divided by 2. Again, try to make the passing here. Also, I would like to have this, or you can just make this profile again with 25. But this time, you can just make the profile at this point, which can pass through these pathways. For this reason, we have to just leave the origin point at this point, which is F7 tool. I will just make these lines. Only I will just get these points. For this reason, I'm going to make the project cut edges or make the project geometries of these lines and make this dimension erased and make this circle passing through this surface, this point. Make coincident passing this point like this. As you see, this time I have just corrected, but the dimension is not true. For this reason, I'm just going to make and correct the profile. This time it is not on this one. I will just erase this profile, this arc shape profile. Let's keep the other side first, then create a new line to sketch on and convert this line for construction purposes. I will again enlarge these two lines. On the other side, I will just create a circle here, having this time it is not the center of this circle is not on the origin side. It has a dimension having 25, but I would like to just keep this center point or this circle to be on this point. Let's make this one. Okay. A little bit more at that time. I think we have a problem at this point. Let's erase this one and make this line passing this point and keep the other point as well and give this dimension radius 27.5. Let's give the first 25. It is not problem. It has a problem because that's this one 27.5. I think we have a typo in this example. Let's trim, and we have this profile at this time. As you see, we have a ball here, ball wall at this point. And after this point, you can also define the other points here, like this. We can also make the other points passing through these points. Or you can just make two lots, one from the other side, one to the other side. After this one, I will just make the neck part added to the R part. Here, what I'm going to do is, let's take the ring and make this one a little bit clear. Let's use, I will just add this portion here. Make this one, which is 39 at most diameter, and we have a neck part which is 32. But this time I will just make this feature the metric size with a hole. I will just go inside and deep. Also, I will just make the two extrusions. I'm not going to make these extrusions. I will just create two holes to make the ends empty. I will just first make the neck part here, which is 39 millimeters. Let's start a new sketch on XY plane with F7 tool. I will just create a new line passing from origin. I will just create a rectangle for this neck part. I will just give centerline properties. I will just go and enlarge the 39, and at this point what we have is the total height. Here it is on the top side, as you see, which is 10 millimeter and 14 millimeter at this point. We have that dimension also, and I will just use that dimension, which is this line, which is our pathway, the third pathway which we have at this point. Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't used the pathway on the top side for this reason. We have a fault at this point. I will use again another rail, which is this rail. Let's make the straight path. Yes. Okay. I have just confused. This one, again, start a new sketch. We have at this point the rail on the top side. It's a straight way. I will just make the first this projection, the geometry here, the top side, this lines or this line intersection, whatever it is. I will just take this line and convert all other lines to construction instead of this one, because I'm just going to make a join operation. Here I would like to have again the 10 millimeter and 4 millimeter on the top side, which is first we have 39 millimeter on the top side. Also, this neck part inside, it is not very clear. For this reason, I will just get this dimension from the sketch which I have drawn on the YZ plane. For that reason, I will just create another sketch. But this time, I will just move my sketch on the other side. I will just redefine my sketch, this one. I will just move my sketch from this plane, XY plane, to the YZ plane. XY plane, redefine this one with accept. It just tells me that I'm moving some items that you cannot use, but I have just made only some few items. I will just erase those items with F7 tool. I'm not going to use these lines. So this line, make the deletes, set, remove the midline, construction. That's great. Let's create a new sketch in order to draw this line, this sketch. Let's create a new sketch with F7 tool. I will just add this neck part again from the midpoint. I will just draw. I will use this portion, this geometry here, which is the straightness on the top side, not this one. For this, I'm going to use, open the sketch 9, have this line with this, close the sketch, and I will just add, first of all, I have just created a center line, convert this line to center line with a box, and this point is having the 39 millimeter distance from the center line, and it is in 4 millimeter in height. And the distance after this one here, I would like to just make another rectangle, and I'll just keep trims. From this line I have 10 millimeter, and I would like to keep this line on this point, and I would like to have like this. I think also we have another mistake at this point. For this reason, again, let's keep this one, and I would like to have this line on this, make this line coincident at this point. Let's finish our sketch. Have the revolve tool and add 2 necks around this line. This is the body part which I did, so we will just make this healing on the back side. Okay, from the top side I'm just going to make a hole feature. Let's have the hole feature. It is on the top side. And make this hole by just moving and get the center point of this one. We have a threaded hole with metric 30 millimeter. I changed the size from this 30 millimeter. It also create the hole and make the threaded size. The hole side, I would like to just get this dimension. I will just make this one clear a little bit. I have 10 millimeter threaded length at this point, as you see here. The threaded length, I can just extend up to this point. It is not important, the dimension, because I'm going to make this portion empty in two pieces. For this reason, I will just go to this one. I will just make the threaded length 10 millimeter. And the depth of this hole, let's make this hole 20 millimeter. I will just also make the drill point flat at that point. This is our part here, which is on the top side. The threaded length here, I will just use the measure tool from the top side till to this point. As you see, it is 10 millimeter. I will just check my view. Also, I'm going to make two more holes on sideways, which are attached to the hexagon extrusions. Which are these? These are 13 millimeters on each side, and we just enlarge this hole like this. Okay. Here, what I'm going to do is I will just make this enlarge to here. Again, I will just continue to modeling this one, the hole at this point. As you see, we get this point attached to, just make stretch and attach to this point. The metric size, it is the 20 millimeter, and this 20 millimeter size is only 13 millimeters for threaded length, and let's say it is 30 millimeter for depth. Again, I select this point, I'm sorry. Again, have the hole on this surface. It is attached to this point. Again, 13 millimeter with 20 millimeter with metric size 20. Not 16, 20. Make this one. Also for the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Again, get the hole command, get the surface, and stick to this point, the hole center point, to this surface. Again, metric 20. I will just change the threaded length for 13 with 20 millimeters. Okay. The next thing, what I'm going to do is I will just make the valve here, which is this point. I will just make the valve empty at that point. Also, we can just combine the spherical face at this point, as you see. Let's start a new sketch on XY plane, with F7 tool. As you see, we made a mistake on the right side. All this one. I will just change the thread length again, 13. Let's say this is 20. Just correct it again. The next thing, what I'm going to do is start a new sketch and make the inside clearance with F2. With F7 tool, I will just get inside and I will just create this origin point, or I will just first open the new the sketch profile which I have created at this point. Oh, I didn't get the other loft point, the loft profile on the bottom side. Again, I will just get that one. Accept. Let's heal this one. Oh, also I have another mistake at this point because my profile doesn't intersect this one.